Hi, I'm Julian. I'm arguing the pro side tonight. I assume you can see and hear me okay. Of course, I want to thank Call Out, the viewers, you for debating me, and I'm happy to be participating in this tournament. There is an alpha and an omega, a beginning and an end. A time limit is our ultimate struggle. It's this time limit that influences us to do more than survive. Our experience and ability to progress are limited. Will and ego require a bigger picture to be painted as a legacy. Without a deadline, our story would not need be created. Read the final page first. Never speak ill of the dead. Rejection of an afterlife does not require absence of higher power or spirituality. An afterlife or here and now is actually part of many Jewish beliefs and pagan beliefs. Near-death experiences are psychological coping mechanisms for death in many studies. Conscious brain activity after death is also limited, and a horror more than an afterlife. Man-made devices cannot answer these questions. Energy passes through equilibrium. Our goals are achieved in the here and now, regardless of belief. The clock runs out.
Okay, well, thank you for accepting the debate. What I'm going to base this off of is my experience as a paranormal investigator, where we use the scientific method to garner various pieces of evidence that basically made me go from being an atheist that believed in materialism to now being a Christian. And the basis for that evidence is on things that we're able to collect for which there is no rational explanation for, such as electronic voice phenomenon, that we were able to collect, using the scientific method where you would have everyone's known location seen and there would be no one else present, yet you would get disembodied voices that would not only be heard by the investigators on the scene, but also recorded on the audio devices that we're using. Other things that we're able to scientifically record, and I can provide evidence for all of this because I personally recorded some of these, and they were defined as Class A EVPs, where you can clearly hear the words being said in the EVP without any audio manipulation at all. So just with the raw file, you can hear, clearly defined words and intelligence, which suggests that the consciousness exists outside of the body, which therefore would conclude that life can exist outside of the body through the consciousness, and therefore there is life after death.
Okay, well, you're not really answering my question about what the purpose of life is, what are you? But I have some questions about that actually. I'm wondering, what is your goal with your research? So my first question is, what's your goal with your research? Of course, my 3 points weren't answered. How does that activity affect the rest of us? And maybe even if I were a religious person, how are the things that you're coming up with? How do they confirm my belief in Jesus or Muhammad or whoever that is?
Okay, well, basically, I guess I'll get to your last question first, which is, how does it affect your belief in, a specific religion? I didn't say it did. That's up to you and your own independent research. I'm a belief in, Jesus Christ, because you have the most documented case of someone coming back from the dead in Jesus Christ. You had many witnesses that record that, and the Bible itself is the most scrutinized document in the history of the world, and no one has yet to be able to debunk it. And if they had, they'd be extraordinarily wealthy and famous for doing so. Not sure. I can't remember what your 2 previous questions were, so I'll just pass it back to you at this point.
Okay. Well, what are you trying to prove, though? I mean, you said that my belief's not affected, but you didn't really tell me what you're trying to prove.
Okay. Well, what I'm trying to prove is that, life does exist outside of the body, and therefore you can have life after death. And to prove that, you have to use scientific means to do so. And the best way to do that is to study paranormal phenomenon, which I've personally gone out and done, and many other people have as well. So I don't really want to get into a big philosophical debate when I think what we're really debating here can be proven through the scientific method. And, when you get into that, really what you're trying to talk about is, philosophically, there's a bigger picture here. And I guess that would be that, you either believe that the universe is just accident and everything is just down to, rational means that have already basically been explained through science. And therefore you can believe that, science has proven that there is no life after death. Or you can go with the idea that there is sort of an intelligence to everything that's going on, that there is a purpose to life, and that there, is life after death, that this isn't all there is.
Okay. But I mean, you're still not really, I still really don't understand what you're trying to prove. I mean, are you trying to prove in the Bible or Jesus? I mean, like what is the goal of the study? I mean, maybe you can prove that there's a ghost, but I actually used to listen to this guy because I thought he was funny, and he would say how he thinks paranormal, because he would say like paranormal activity, that's the devil, like that's demons and the devil, and he would try to talk to him and stuff. I thought it was funny. It really is a philosophical question. And it's a difficult one to answer, and I know it was a challenge for the debaters last night. As far as the universe being an accident, that was kind of my second point, is that there are actually many faiths that, and especially the reason I mentioned Judaism is that it's the foundation for the dominant other religions, Christianity and Islam. But at the same time, many Jewish people only believe in the here and now, and that's very important to them. They don't talk about an afterlife; they talk about the here and now. But they still have an answer for beginning and an end. So they have spiritual beliefs. They believe in those things, but they don't believe in an afterlife. So even you can believe that on a higher power exists and not believe in an afterlife. They're actually separate questions if you think about it in a philosophical way.
Okay, yeah, and that's why I tried to stray away from the philosophical debate, because we can argue forever about is this argument connected to that type of philosophy, is there a God, or things like that, where I think we can have a much more effective debate by reviewing the scientific evidence, for which there is plenty of. I mean, if you take a look at the clinical studies, one done by Carlos Osis, a noted physics professor, and Orlando Haraldson, they examined 5,000 cases of deathbed visions. And, there's basically no, biological pharmaceutical factors that, weren't debunked as for reasons as to why people had these. And there's plenty of science behind, these studies and things like that. And there's pretty, no good explanation as to why these people were able to have these things. There's another video I saw, and it's been backed up by, research and things like that, where a lady on her deathbed was able to identify a shoe that was on a third ledge of a hospital, yet she had never seen that shoe before having her near-death experience. So how is it that she's having these out-of-body experiences and 5,000 other people have had them as well, and they're able to see things that they should have no ability to see from a hospital bed?
Well, part of my first statement was that they're coping mechanisms, and I think the funniest way to point this out is that atheists, they actually report going into a deep sleep. So it's whatever your destiny that needs fulfilled, it's whatever it is. It might not even be Jesus or Muhammad. Maybe it's a loved one that passed away that you really miss, or something like that. Like whatever you want to be fulfilled at the other end of that tunnel, which is a lot like being born, right? When we were born, we go through a tunnel. So we don't, this new beginning, we imagine it as a tunnel, and then it's whatever thing would calm us. I mean, to go through such a horrific experience. And one thing I'm so curious about is how is your research affecting people to, because I assume you said that you're a Christian and this changed your belief. So I would assume that the end goal here is belief in Jesus Christ. So how is this study going to lead into a conclusion that I should believe in Jesus Christ? I mean, because I could even have that might be even founded in a belief that only has beginning and end and doesn't talk about an afterlife. Christianity is the beginning of talking about an afterlife. And as far as who did this study, I don't think that really matters who did it. Or, I mean, maybe they weren't like a paranormal investigator or whatever, but still they're not proving an afterlife. I mean, I think the idea, like someone was saying yesterday, that maybe our brain lives a little longer, but that's, for me, that's the scariest thing to think about when I think about death, is that maybe my brain will wake up again. Like, that doesn't make me think I'm going to be in heaven with Jesus. That makes me think that I'm going to be laying in a box with no power whatsoever, because I have that thing with sleep now where I can only half wake up. So it's going to pass to you.
Yeah, so I guess I'll answer your first question, which is, is this just people grasping at straws on their deathbed? Is it just cultural factors or, preconceived notions that they had that caused these near-death experiences? And the study that I was referencing cites, the visions often did not fit with the religious preconceptions of the individuals. Christians saw no evidence of hell. Hindus had no visions that confirmed they would be reborn. There were 11 aspects of these visions that were shared by both American and Indian cases, so they're likely common to many cultures. So basically, the idea that these are, people grasping at straws that are based on religious beliefs or things that, they had in their head before, they had their near-death experiences, basically been debunked because the guy did a global study. Other than that, the second question was, why am I trying to do this? I'm just basically trying to prove that we need to have a very open mind and continue to study what we don't know. And what we don't know is there life after death? Because it's extraordinarily hard to get empirical evidence for death, which is something that no one can actually experience. And the closest thing we can are these near-death experiences. And the studies of those show that there is life after death. And the only other way to study that is to go out yourself, which I've done, and study using the scientific method and various devices to try to record paranormal activity. And that paranormal activity, which has been recorded by many people, is more proof that life does exist after death. And that's all I'm arguing. There is no greater goal in this debate than just to prove that fact.
It's kind of funny that I do these debates all the time, and this is the one where my camera goes out. Can you nod to show me that you can still hear me? You can still hear me? Okay. Well, I mean, there's a difference of opinion there. I mean, only the best way to answer that is that I had some studies that I looked at that said that basically the beginning of the experience is the same with going through this tunnel, but depending on the person's religious belief, the end is different, or what their expectation is different based on their life goal, which is I think is really the central. No matter what we believe, there's a beginning and an end. There's a goal that's being fulfilled, so I mean, even if we have some sort of evidence of spirituality, it still doesn't show an afterlife. So I mean, I'll go ahead and pass it back.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I'm talking about here is basically, the scientific evidence of these studies, and you can call it a difference of opinion, but the people who conducted the study, these are their opinions that I'm just, reciting to you. I don't claim to, be an expert on near-death experiences. What I am an expert on is, paranormal activity. And, you can clearly go and do your own research and see other people have documented it. But, there's a scientific way to approach recording that information. And many people have done that. And there's plenty of evidence from electronic voice phenomenon There's evidence that, people have recorded of objects moving without anyone touching it. And there's no way that type of stuff is possible without some sort of, paranormal activity taking place. There's no way an intelligent paranormal, entity is recording a electronic voice phenomenon. And you can go find, plenty of examples of documented evidence of that. And I can even provide you of some that are considered Class A, which means there's been no audio manipulation done at all. And there's no good explanation as to why we're able to record those types of things in the field. And it's a, repeatable scientific experiment, and anyone can go to any one of these places that's considered haunted. And with enough research, they will likely get one of these things on audio. And I just think that it's a scientific debate that you can have, and it doesn't have to go into philosophy or religion at all, because we have the scientific methods now in the technology to record this stuff.
Okay. I mean, how does that affect the quality? I mean, maybe someone, we're all looking for answers. But no matter what, there's an end goal. No matter what we perceive that is, if our legacy is a museum, or if our legacy is passing into the kingdom of heaven, there's an end goal. So how would having some sort of evidence of spirituality get us closer to that end goal, more than maybe just assure us that we have a reasonable goal?
Well, what I'm trying to do here is the pursuit of the truth. And that means I have to go where the evidence takes me. And if I have evidence to suggest that there is paranormal activity taking place, then I have to go ahead and research why that is. And my research brings me to the conclusion that life does exist after death. And my only end goal in this debate is to get more people to look into that fact and then come into their own conclusions on their own. But I think that we should study life after death. And I think that it is something that, you can scientifically study. And I don't think there's any reason why it should be discounted as something that is important and, does possibly exist. And that's where I'm going to leave it.
Okay. Let's just assume you're right for this session of the debate. What is the biggest challenge you face with that research?
Yeah, I only have 4 seconds left, so I'm pretty sure I can't answer.
Okay. Of course, I want to thank the judges and call out again. I had 3 point. It is a deadline that marks our legacy, no matter who we are. What we believe, no matter what we believe that is. The game is played from a linear perspective, and the possibility of goals being achieved will cease. Nothing will change that. This is how we determine what is important and achieve the outcome of the final page that will influence others. Thank you and good night. Well, one last thing that I should say is that this is a pro-con debate. I need to be sure to point out that my three main arguments, that we live in the here and now, that number 2 argument that spirituality does not require an afterlife, and number 3 would be the difference in opinion that and the science here. So with that, thanks and good night. And I'm shocked by